Hey everybody, it's Mike with Monkey Fab Garage. Today we're going to be building a breather box for a ZR1 Corvette. My neighbor has their big St. Bernard out and he's barking, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that. But I've turned off all the fans and everything, so hopefully it's a decent experience sound-wise for you, minus the barking dog. Breather box, lots of different ways you can build those. Basically, you have to have a vent in. It vents your crankcase pressure, helps to separate the crap that's in your crankcase, which can be fuel vapor, moisture, oil vapors. It helps get that crap out of there. And it also is a way to alleviate pressure inside the case, which might occur from ring flutter or just leaking pressure past your pistons, the natural rotation of the block, and boost, blow by. I mean, all the things that can go on with an engine. It helps get that stuff out of the crankcase, which in theory should allow your rings to seal better and give you more horsepower. So that's the theory. It's, do you need one? Well, I don't know. If you need one, you need one, and if you don't, then you don't. So I'm not here to sell you breather boxes today. I'm only here to talk about them and show you and build one. So we're going to build one today. So basic design is you have a fitting or two, AM usually 10. The Pro Mods have like 1 1/4 inch. It's just depends on what you're doing and what's going on in the engine. How much evacuation do you need? What kind of ring gap you have? So we put a couple fittings on a box. We separate those fittings from a breather, usually on the top. They say baffle it. We will baffle it by creating an obstruction for vapors to get past, and I found that to be pretty good. I'll probably do like a little thing on theory, maybe even like a little blackboard, whiteboard. So usually whenever we post up a breather box, the first question everybody's going to ask is it baffled? It's kind of like if the only thing you know about welding is undercut, you put up the thing and it says, oh, it's undercut. Oh, is it baffled? So it's kind of the joke with the welder fabricator guys is if you see them put a breather box up, you have to be the first one to ask if it's baffled. And I've seen just stuff get away that that really isn't baffled. I mean, I've seen as much as just a tube on top where your filter is drop down past where the nipple or where AM fittings are, so that the vapor would have to go under the tube and back up and out, and that's gonna make enough of an obstruction. As long as you're not so far down that you're dipping into the sludge and shit that settles in there. And even so, it's going to make almost like an oil filter, like an oil bath, like the old oil bath air filters. To get that stuff through, it's just going to be difficult. It doesn't take much really to make an effective breather. I mean, you could literally make a box, put some AN fittings on it, and put a filter on the top, and that's going to work pretty well. But throwing a little extra baffling in it, maybe a couple plates, the oil would have to make a couple turns around to get out, or vapors or whatever. That's way more. It's plenty. Something I back in my Honda days when I first started doing like fabricating, welding and stuff like that. I remember I read up on all the Honda Tech board and whatnot, and a big thing was like get these breathers, and then throw steel wool in there, and that baffles it. Well, it's stupid, and I'm gonna do a demo because I bought steel wool just for that because I was building breathers, and I said, well, I got stainless steel, the expensive stuff, the nice stainless steel stuff, and I bought a big roll of it because I was gonna make $1 million building breathers and selling them, which you don't do unless you're importing them from China and selling them. So just simple. Make it a couple turns and it's enough. I'm gonna show you right now. All right, so you have an engine. We'll make this one a 4-cylinder because that's easy. It'll just be an inline 4. So this is your cylinder, and you got the oil pan, and you got connecting rods going up, connected to a crankshaft, and you know your cylinder head, valves, and whatnot. Okay, so inside this empty space, you know, where oil is just hanging out, you want to vent that. So there's lots of ways to get, you know, that to it. The most common way is your valve cover. So we'll just make this like this. And so we'll put an AN fitting on here. And over here we're going to make our breather box. So this is going to be exaggerated. So what you basically need is a fitting. So we'll have a fitting, and then you need a breather, some way to actually get it out, and an air filter to keep it from going everywhere. And that's it. So we basically connect the engine to the breather box, and usually put a drain somewhere on there to get the sludge out. So basically, this thing moving up and down creates, you know, vapors and whatnot, and as the pressure increases or decreases, your air will travel in and out, you know, through this guy right here. So, like I said, I've seen just as basic as the tube that this is connected to being dropped past, so your oil vapor now has to hit this. Every time it hits something, it's going to want to stick the vapors, whatever it is, to it, and separate that vapor from the air. Then it's got to turn around. It's got to go up and go out to make it, you know, out of the can. So you can do that. You can, you know, put a little plate in there that's just in the way too. So now you got to go around that and then somehow find the way out and then out. So the air is going to move because that's just, you know, given. It's just a pressure differential. Whereas, you know, the vapors, they're going to want to cling to things and stick to things. And that's what this does. And eventually it'll just kind of fill up with sludge, you drain it out, and you're good to go again. So that's a breather box. And it can just be that simple with a way to get the pressure out and a way to vent that. This is to the atmosphere. You know, this would be like your typical race type scenario where you don't have to comply with EGR and all that good stuff. I thought I was going to build breather boxes, and I heard of the stainless steel, steel wool put inside there, and all the stuff gets stuck on it, and great, and that might work. So I bought the highest stuff, you know, the coarse 316 stainless steel wool. So that's pretty fancy stuff there. Let's see if it'll show up on this piece of titanium. Look how fancy, I got titanium sheet. So anyway, I took this out and I got some and I just did this. Okay? I'm just squishing it. Shaking it a little bit. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Okay, so I'm sure you can see that. That is all the shit that is coming out of the stainless steel wool. So if you want to put that in your breather box and have it possibly make its way back into your engine where there's bearings and aluminum pistons and stuff spinning around, well, you just knock yourself out. I'm not going to put that in my breather boxes because I think it is dangerous. in my humble opinion. So you got the theory. I showed you that on the whiteboard, how a breather box works. I showed you how easy it is basically to make an effective breather box and how simple it is. And I showed you why I personally don't like to use steel wool as a baffle inside my breather boxes, catch can, whatever you want to call it. So then, let's talk about breather box or catch can pricing. You're not going to find it anywhere cheaper than the people that sell those things. There's people, people usually hit me up. The first thing I'll say is, check with Mighty Mouse, because that's what they do. That's all they do. I don't know, what their procedures are or how they get them made, but that's what they specialize in. And that's probably going to be more cost effective than if you go to somebody that doesn't really specialize in making that, whatever product it is, and you're going to save money. So for me, I usually start my catch cans out. I'll usually quote $300, for something simple, and it's typical, like, oh well, I can get that on eBay or whatever. Well, I encourage you to do so. It's like I said, it doesn't take much for these guys to work, and the simple can work. So get a hold of Mighty Mouse and order your catch cans from him. That's all he's done for years, and he's good at it. He has several different options, and that's a win. But if you want something custom made, then it's gonna cost more. Let's take a look at what we got, and I'll run you through the CAD software. All right, so can you see? Are you hanging out with me? And we'll get a little zoomy zoom. Can we get some zoomy zoom? All right, so I have a Torchmate, and now it's Lincoln. They were bought out by Lincoln. I bought it a long time ago, and it's an expensive machine. People ask, and I would say $10,000 to $15,000 in the table. The CAD software and the computer dies, every 3 months because it's in the shop where it doesn't belong. So here is the layout of what we're going to make today, and here's the top. And on the top, it's going to have. See, I'll better point so you can see better. So here's the top piece, and it's going to have 2 filters to breathe, and it's going to have I think an AN6 on the top and the bottom. The top for the transmission, the bottom will be the drain. The inside will be, this is the faceplate, so these are the top and the bottom. This will be the faceplate, and then around this piece will be bent like a box, and have the filters on the top, and on top what you don't see is the strap. It's going to hold that all in place. It's going to have a couple of dash 12 fittings for the breather, and then a mounting tab to hold it all in place. So we laid all that out, and all the bend dimensions are factored in with a little bit of overlap. So when we bend the piece, there should be a little bit extra on the end, and we'll knock that off on the shear. Not a big deal. So we did all the CAD piece, and then I exported that into my CAM program, which is again a Torchmate program, and went into the G code, which is here, and just went in and put all, like I said, the feeds and speeds and the tool changes, stops, and all that. So usually when I do that, I'll have it all set up, and I'll have the machine offline, and I'll hit the override to like 1,000%, which doesn't really do much of anything because it has in it has maximum feed rates anyway, so it can only go so fast, and it has pauses for the pierces and pauses for after the pierces for the movement and that kind of thing. But I'll just throw that on there, and I'll just run it through. So I bumped up the override to 1,000%, and I'm just going to hit start, and it's going to ask, do you want your plate marker to run? I'm going to say yes, and go, and then we're going to see the blue line as our toolpath's running. and I just watch it because I've gotten fairly good with the CAD and the CAM software, and you know, on normal stuff that I do a lot, or smaller stuff I do, I know I can see the code. You know, kind of like the Matrix. I can look at the G code and kind of just by looking, scanning it, I can tell what's happening, and go in and make my changes. So, but on big pieces, you know, I don't want to lose a, you know, a 2 foot by 2 foot piece of aluminum, because you know that's money. So I'll go ahead and run the simulation just to make sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and I'm not, you know, cutting where I'm not supposed to be, or plate marking where I'm not supposed to be, and all that mess. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the table, and I'm gonna pick out a piece of aluminum to, you know, that this is the right size for what we're trying to do, and set it in the table and get the set the zeros on the X and the Y axis, and we'll start burning stuff. So when I do my aluminum, I order it with this PVC coating on it, and that kind of protects it. But you can't cut it on the plasma cutter with that shit on there, so it's all got to come off, or at least the majority of it. So what I do is I try to take off as little as I have to. And that way, if I go back and need to use the more of that sheet, the aluminum underneath is still nice and fresh, and not all scratched up or oxidized. And I get that question sometimes. People will see my work and they'll be like, "Man, how do you keep your work so you know, clean, the aluminum so clean?" And that's how. I just try to handle it as little as possible without the PVC on it. And then once you get it off and you're at this stage, then you just have to be really extra careful. You have to be extra careful with how you handle it. You gotta keep your dick beaters off the aluminum. That's key. And the plasma is a disaster too. So the plasma will leave the backside like this. This is all the smoky shit you can see. The sides will be kind of like, I want to say like burnt, for lack of a better, but definitely. So, fact. You can grab your fucking aluminum, bend this up, weld that motherfucker just like it is, and it'll do its job. It'll be a catch can, and no big deal. But it will not look good. There'll be pepper, like little contaminants, all in the weld, and nobody likes that. So also when we pierce, it leaves these little boogers on there. And there's the back of that. You can see how it depends on where it's cutting at. If it hits one of the metal bars in the back and just throws some burnt like dross, then that's all like carbon that's been sprayed up on the back of it. So basically what we have to do is we have to clean all the edges, we have to clean the back of it, and we have to clean all the holes so that when we go to weld them, it's, you know, just aluminum, because that's what we want to be welded, plain old aluminum. What we're going to do is I'm going to make with the cleaning on these guys. Of the crap off the back, just what I did, and then I did this one edge. So here's what your typical edge is going to look like. I hope that's, yeah, you can see that. And then I just did this one here, and you can see the difference. See how it's nice and clean, and there's not these, looks dull and frosty. And then this side is bright. Is that the right side? Yes, it's hard to tell with the lens. That side's bright and shiny, and that's what we want, is all bright and shiny. So I just want to stop so you can see that, and that's what we're trying to get to with all the sides and all the surfaces that are going to have weld on it. Actually, the whole entire thing, because we want to give our customers a nice, clean product. Okay, so we got all the edges and the back sides cleaned up, and now we just got to clean the holes. For the rhythm, I like to use these guys, these big gnarly guys. But you saw, like, if you're not, you have to have a light hand, keep it spinning fast, and keep a light, steady hand, because if it catches, it just wants to jog. And then you certainly want to wear gloves, you know, with that guy. I've caught my finger in there and done a lot of stupid things, but that one hurt. That one hurt a lot. So now I'm just gonna get my AN fittings and make sure that they all fit the holes. Fittings. I sell these AN fittings. I got like the cheapest AN fittings in the world. Asterisks, because that might not absolutely be true, but I have really cheap ones on my website, monkeyfabgarage.com. Okay, that's a wiener, and that's a wiener. And all we need is this guy to be a wiener. Wiener, wiener. All right, so we are good to go. The AN fittings are good, and all we have to do is get some tube. I got to cut some tube to sit on top of our breather, 1.5 inch tube. So I'm gonna do that right now, and I don't think that you need to see that, so hang tight. So normally what I would do is drop these down actually into the breather, kind of like I showed you when I was doing on the board, just to give it a little more extra baffling. But due to the constraints that this guy had, I had to make the hole as small as possible because basically I didn't have enough room. Basically, he had me pull it in this way, and I could only do so much and still have something to weld to. On what I use for a lot of baffling, I just stick this inside. It takes up basically the entirety of the inside chamber, and you put this in between your breather and the inlets, and I'll just go ahead and crack these guys open like louvers. All right, so a little bit of work, but you see little divots. Baffling. Is it baffled? Is it baffled, bro? They're all covered. All the stuff is covered with like that powdery stuff from my plasma cutter, and I just want to wipe that off. Give a nice clean piece of metal to weld. What I use is just a microfiber. And denatured alcohol or either the denatured alcohol or acetone. It doesn't make any I really haven't noticed much of a difference at all. And you want to be sure to wipe your hands first to get all the oil off your hands, or else you'll be getting your dick beater. You'll be getting dick beater prints all over the aluminum, and your boss won't like that, or your customer, or yourself, or whatever. The bottom and the top, this is going to be the front, and then this guy here will be the back. So what we got to do to make this work out is we got to bend it here and here. So this is a simple design, which helped the guy with the cost. I leave a little extra on bends because the radius, you can calculate how much you need and kind of go for that, like, I hope you're right on. But it usually doesn't work out, so what I'll do is I leave a little extra on one side, so once I get it all bent up, I can just take over the shear and knock that off or cut it off, whatever. Just line it up basically and mark it and make it so I can see it on the machine. That's going to be our first bit. So we're going to take this little dot right here and we're going to throw it on the brake, and we're going to bend that biz out. Okay, this little guy, this little angle finder is helpful, and you know what you're going to find is that not all metal is going to bend the same. It just depends on the metal, the thickness, which way the grain's going, how the bend's going with the grain. But what you'll find is that on the same metal, it tends to bend the same. So if you're making like five of one thing, whatever it is, then you can find the angle you need to bend to, and you're good. This is Wixey, W-I-X-E-Y, and it's backlit, which is nice, and it is far, far, far superior to the Harbor Freight bullshit, and I don't think it costs much more. You find them on, just Google Wixey digital angle gauge, and they are great. They are great. But mine just ran out of batteries, and that's okay because it's been in use for a year. But I know to get 90 degrees, I'm going to have to generally go about 94 degrees. So I'll use that as a base bend, and then I'll go check. And then if I need to add a degree or two, it's easy to monitor that with the compass. It isn't super fast acting though, which is kind of annoying because you have to kind of go slowly into your bend. Alright, so we're shy about 3 degrees or so, it looks to be. So we'll just walk this back in there, and we can use the angle gauge again, zoom it up, and we'll go, we went 94, so we'll take like 96 this time. Looks decent. It looks decent. That could be it. Just like a half a degree more, so you probably could rock that, but why not make it perfect? Alright, so here's our first bend. You always need a second set of hands to do this. You certainly can't do it while holding the goddamn camera, apparently. Okay, so that's where we're at, and we got this. And you see how I have it? It's like on a V. That's what we want. We want it to come all the way down here, and we want that to bend back, and we want the same, this little V over here, we want to get on that side. And we're going to get that by marking this little punta right at the corner. So I'm going to mark it. I'm going to set you down for half a second. Bear with me. Stay strong, little guy. So I'm marking it like right, and we'll try to get perfect in line, so it's like right in line. So we're over here, and then we're over here, and that's what you want. Usually put a piece of paper or something in there, kind of keep it from getting scratched. You don't want it to get scratched, right? So the other one we took to 96, so I'm going to take this one right to 96 this time, and in theory it should work, but in practice it probably won't. But let's give it a try, see what happens. Oh, you gotta let go. You can't have it. Wow. 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 Guess what? Matt, did I tell you how much I appreciate this camera? Because I really do. You even send it with fancy little parts, so check that out. So you see this side, and then we got the front, and then we got that rod mill. That's bitchin'. That is bitchin'. That's exactly what we want. Huh? Went a little bit long on that side, but that's alright. That's okay. So all we gotta do is mark it. Yeah, and then we'll get rid of that piece, and this piece here will go on the back like now. Cool, huh? It's so exciting. So we'll take our grocery bag and our part, and we will go stomp it. Ow! Oh, okay, Jump Master. Alright, so got that side whoop, whoop, chopped off, so we're even.
now. So what does that mean? Well, whenever you cut one side, you have to clean it. No matter if it's in the plasma or the laser or the water or whatevs, it's got to be clean. So we'll get that cleaned up. Okay, so fabrication is done. All the cutting, bending, shaping, all that good stuff, and we are on to the welding part of it, which is the fun part, which is the least amount of everything you do, but that's okay. Don't tell anybody. People think we have so much fun doing nothing but welding all day. And you gotta wipe the filthy dick beater prints off of everything that you've been handling. Okay, so this guy, now what's important here is that we get everything right. So, like, actually, and then we don't scratch the fuck out of everything. So, this guy goes on the back, like now. And I think this guy goes on the front, like now. And then the bottom goes a certain way too. The little nipple goes a certain way, front, back, I can't remember. And we can't do any of that without putting our baffle on the inside, welding it in place, welding the baffle in place. So there's an order to this, and it doesn't take much, especially when you got, like, you know, engravings on stuff, to fuck up and get it upside down or backwards and whatever. And each part you put on, you have that chance of doing. So you have to be extra vigilant when you get to this part where you're starting to actually weld things together, because once you lay that bead, it's pretty hard to come back from that. That's a pretty permanent type thing. So what I'll do is I will pull up on my phone pictures of the last ones I've done to make sure that everything's laid out right, and then we'll start tacking stuff up. So here's what we're going for. Can you see that? So the little nipple in the back and the nipple in the front. So let's get a good spot for you, Mr. Camera and audience. You guys can watch the show. I'm not particularly good at this, but it doesn't stop me from trying. So the most important thing when you're setting this all up is the fit up. As discussed before in the video, when I was laying out the bends, you want those corners like just coming into each other. It makes it easier to penetrate through. It makes better looking welds. How they lay down, how the edges roll, how you put the heat into it. So that's what most of what you're going to see is me just kind of looking around, this box as I'm tacking it up and ensuring that when I go to put that tack in, that my fit up is perfect. To me, that's important. There's better welders out there that could care less about the perfect fit up because they've done so much work that they can easily weld around it. Aluminum isn't my greatest, isn't my strongest forte. So I ensure that the fit up is perfect. You'll see here I'm just kind of using the cup, kind of pushing a little bit with the cup and my hands, and I'm using my thumb on the end to ensure that they're perfectly lined up. And with the machine set up with the settings that I showed you in the text there, it's easy to just kind of stomp down on the pedal and it just creates a tack. I don't want to create the wrong, so here I'm looking at my phone. So again, I discussed how easy it is to mess one of these up and weld something on the wrong way, like this top piece. If it was 180 degrees off of what I got right there, then that nipple would be in the wrong place, per the person that's buying the machine, per their specs, and that wouldn't be a happy customer. But yeah, so what I was saying is I don't just stomp the pedal. I think that gives the wrong impression. I walk the pedal down, so it's like one, and if you watch the tungsten here, you'll see it. It'll spark, and then it'll just you'll see it kind of walk. See, it's not a zap. It's go about 70%, get some heat into it, and then go all the way down until you see the metal kind of join together. And it also depends on how you angle that tungsten. So if you get a good angle on the tungsten, kind of a 45, what I've noticed is that kind of spreads it out. So if you go directly perpendicular with the piece you're trying to tack, I've noticed that kind of, the arc force kind of wants to push the metal back and away from each other. Whereas if you tilt the tungsten, 45 degrees seems to be pretty good, 35, 45, and then zap it. That works better. And here I am tacking the corners. Corners are pretty easy, especially where you make the bends, because you end up with a point and it kind of hangs over the bend. And what you can do is use that little point as filler, So if you just heat it up, drop it down. It kind of makes a dirty weld sometimes. So you just got to be careful. Try to get some heat to the bottom as well as the top when you're making that tack. And that's about it. So tacking up the box, the fit up is the most important thing. So the welding isn't. The welding is the ABCs. Always be comfortable. You'll see I'm using a lot of aluminum box. I wanted to hold that thing down, hold in place. It gets a little wobbly at first, and I figured it out. This is usually what happens when I'm welding is, I kind of, get in a rush and I get moving too fast, and then I'll kind of catch myself, once something starts going badly, and fix the problem. So here the box gets kind of wobbly. I don't have anything holding it down the top. Later you'll see I throw an aluminum block on there, which helps you weight it down and keeps it from rocking, because at first here it's going to rock all over the place. Those settings I gave you, the 150 is pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at 150, and that's going to get this thing going, and then I'm going to back off and I'm going to walk the pedal to what it needs. I don't know. I would guess maybe 120, 130-ish. But it doesn't matter. I just watch the pedal, and I use the pedal to dictate how much. I'll use the puddle to dictate how much pedal I need, if that makes sense. So I'm probably just going to I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward through most of this welding, because it's going to be pretty boring to see. If I see anything interesting, I'll slow it down for you.
All right, so here I'm getting ready to weld bungs, and what I do differently on my bungs is I turn my heat up. So I'm had it at 150. I'm gonna crank it up to 170, 175-ish. I'm also going to use a thicker filler rod. So I generally use 1/16, but for my bungs I'll use 3/32. I just find it easier to work with. I don't have to feed as fast or as much. Uh, I think that, you know, what I say at the end of the video is you can tell how good a aluminum welder is by their how their bungs look. You can always tell how good just check out their bung hole. It'll tell you everything. but it does say a lot about a welder, how, you know, consistent the beads are, how consistent the width is, the dabs, you know, and it really shows in these small little circular fillets that you have to do on stuff like this. What I'll do is I aim my arc towards wherever the thickest thing is. So here will be obviously the top plate, and I'll just let it, you know, let it distribute the heat out from there. I'll generally feed the wire to the bung and keep my heat on the base material, and just kind of, you know, zoom it in. Again, aluminum isn't necessarily my best, you know, there's something that I weld the best. You know, I'm much more comfortable with like stainless steels, but that's what I do with this stuff. I will say here in a minute, because, you know, I'm welding really hot. I tend to think, you know, for 1/8, 125 wall aluminum, 170 amps. That's a lot, but it works. But what happens here is I just weld this whole box nonstop, and here in a second it's gonna just saturate with heat, and I'm just gonna have to take. And it's okay. You'll know what happens because your bead will become ill-defined, and your bead profile just won't be pronounced as well as it usually is, and it looks grainy. So the weld starts looking grainy. No big deal. I just stop, cool it down a bit. It doesn't take much. You just take an air hose or whatever and just kind of hit it, and it'll dissipate the heat fairly quick. So I'll do that here in a minute and cool it down, and then just finish it out, all doing the same thing, same technique. I hope that you can kind of see that. I use this TIG finger a lot as well. If you don't have one, you're really missing out. I think that's like, you want to know how to weld or better yourself, the first thing you should do is go over to welding tips and tricks videos and watch them all. It's people PM me, which I don't mind, and say, you know, Mike, how do I do whatever? And I got a TIG welder, how do I weld? It's generally the question. And my answer is always, you know, go over to Jody's videos on welding tips and tricks, subscribe, and watch every single video he has on TIG welding. Just open up the videos, go as far back as you can, and start at the very beginning and work your way to the most current. And, you know, it'll teach you an amazing amount. That's how I learned. I mean, you still have to have the seat time, but it's pretty much how I learned how to weld. But yeah, just line up these TIG fingers, kind of keep away from the heat, and like I said, I'm just angling you'll see my tungsten is going downward towards the base, and the rod is going right into the side of the bung, and it's just filling the void in between. I try to keep it as consistent as possible.
tend to find that the aluminum you can weld pretty hot. You know, depending on the size of it and where you're putting the heat at, you can just kind of run with it. But when it finally heat soaks, it'll let you know, and the welds will start looking kind of not as defined. It kind of like smeared together, and it'll also look grainy. So that's just something to look at, look for, and it's really not a big deal. Like, just hit it with the air hose, or like I'm just hitting it with this fan while I'm talking to you, and it's probably already ready to weld again. It's just a matter of just needs to take the edge off. It's just gotten pushed over that point. But so that's it. About 5 hours into this. See, I started at 3, actually about almost 6 hours into it, because I started at 3 and it's like 15 till 9 now. So, and I pretty much went straight through without stopping. So it's 6 hours into the guy, and you know, it is what he was wanting. It's been about a month since I've actually touched aluminum. Easily a month, maybe longer. So it's not necessarily my. I'm not bad at it. Let's take off the. I'm not horrible at it, but it's not something I actually get a lot of practice at, and I'd like to get more practice at it. But you can always tell how good somebody is or is not by the bungs. So you see, mine are not awesome. They're not the best, but it's the bungs that give you away. If you can't weld the bungs on nice and neat, then you probably don't got them skills, or you need to work on them. Like I need to work on mine. But that's it. That's the tank, and it's good for exactly what we said in the original deal. And the filters sit on top. They have the transmission and a drain on the bottom. Then those will go to the valve covers. It sits, I guess, inside some kind of fender well, and it's got the baffles on the inside. So yes, it's baffled. So that's it. That's how you make a catch can. And there's many different ways that you could, manipulate that and make it for you, however you choose to do it. And I've seen it done easily, just like with square tubing, like someone cuts a piece of square tubing and welds plates on the ends, or cuts a pipe and welds plates on the ends and sticks a tube on it. There's a million different ways to make it simple, as well as you can make them as complex as you want to. So I hope you enjoyed. Lots of these bungs and fittings, along with t-shirts I sell on my website, monkeyfabgarage.com. So if you want a cool t-shirt or want to pick these bungs, like my 12-12s are $3.50, and my -10s are like $3, and it's like $2.50 for the smaller ones, and the 16s are, I want to say, like $6 or $6.50, so it's super cheap. And I sell lots of little fabrication things on there, so at very good prices. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed. This is Mike with Monkey Fab signing off.